toward more far-flung, less tight, more diverse personal networks. So the difference between my world, so when I was growing up, if you asked me how big my social network was, I wouldn't understand what you were talking about, all right? But today looking back, it would have been as far as I could walk. 4 or 5 blocks to the public school where I went, the other direction, 5 or 6 blocks to the park where we played baseball, basketball, and the rest, and everybody in between. And everybody within that area knew each other. And we were not the kids, the center of that network. We were the kids. And there were always people watching from the 3rd floor, and they were called grandmas and grandpas. That was my social network. It wasn't any bigger than that. If you ask today, heck, if you ask a middle school kid, how big is their social network? It knows no geography, it knows no boundaries. It also knows no ages. I grew up in an embedded community. People now live in social networks. Remember when Google Plus tried Google Plus circles? It really didn't work. But it looked just like this. And their first promotion, I remember, was this. Well, this is for guys. If you get on there, you'll be able to have these groups, and you can have one circle of just your ex-girlfriends and one circle where your current girlfriend is, and they won't be able to talk to each other. Well, in fact, we've moved to the center of our network. When I grew up in this one, we weren't the center. But now we're the center of all these relationships. It's changing every social institution, including the local church, which was built on the embedded model, and now finds itself in the social network model of life. The group-centered model of church, home, school, neighborhood, and now the network-centric or the net-centric model of relationships that are both mediated in physical and online spaces that know no boundaries. Wellman and how many say the 3 revolutions that made possible networked individualism. I know it sounds like an oxymoron, but it is networked individuals. Yes. The hallmark is that people function more as connected individuals and less as embedded group members. So what does that mean for a local church? If the only metric is how many come to Sunday worship, we've missed the whole revolution. Because the question should be, how many people are we connected to? And some of those people we see on Sunday. It gets us thinking differently about mission and missional. This stands in stark contrast to the long-standing social arrangements formed around large hierarchical bureaucracies. Think established churches, denominations. So when my U.S. Catholic bishops wanted to figure out how to control the internet, they really were right, because it was a threat. Because just like 500 years earlier, you now had democratized knowledge. I mean, especially some of my older colleagues in my generation, the boomer generation, will look and say, well, you don't need to know anything, you just go on your iPhone and you look at it. But, well, yeah. When I grew up, you went to the World Book. Yeah. Some of you remember World Book, the shelf. Yeah. Just think of how the World Book was an encyclopedia for the younger ones here. And the assumption was profound. You bought the encyclopedia, it was a shelf. In our case, it was in the kitchen, okay, because that's where you did your homework and the rest. It was there. And every year, the World Book would come out with an annual supplement, about 250 pages of everything that happened that year that was significant. Think about this for a minute. And you get the bishops were right, and they were wrong all at the same time, right? Can you imagine thinking about knowledge and information that way today? Can you imagine thinking about information that's not portable? So in 2015, all of the scientific knowledge generated before January 1st of 2015 doubled in the 2015 year. All the scientific knowledge in human history coming into January 1st of 2015, the amount of that knowledge doubled in 1 year. That would be a very large supplement to the World Book. So try this one out. Every 4 hours, Google indexes knowledge and information out there equivalent to all the books in the Library of Congress. Every 4 hours, 6 times a day. You can't wrap your head around it except to say, oh my God. That's how fast knowledge is exponentially growing. And so it's addressing these long-standing arrangements and moving us away from small density groups such as households, communities, and work groups to what? To new ways of connecting, communicating, exchanging information. And it's profoundly these 3 words. It's portable, it's personal, and it's participatory. Portable, personal, participatory. So when I do faith formation workshops, what I say all the time is, faith formation today needs to be portable, personal, and participatory. And the first response I get, you're going to know exactly what it is. When you have to come to church for something? No. Now you have to ask, what should they come together for? In other words, now you got to re-ask that question. So it's not how do I get them to church, it's how do I rethink why they would come to church and for what? If knowledge is now personal, portable, and participatory. I also frame it this way. So, maybe not today because it's going to snow later, but on a typical day, moms and dads spend a lot of time shuttling their kids to activities and waiting. Have you been to a Little League baseball game recently? Well, the last couple of years. And so I have a 9-year-old grandson, he plays baseball. So we get a chance, he's in North Carolina, so we get a chance every now and then to go from Connecticut, and we try to time so we see a couple of baseball games with him. So when I started, when I was growing up, my son was growing up, we went to baseball, and everybody in the bleacher seats was always watching, even if your son wasn't on the field. Now I notice that between innings, and if your son is not on the field, what are parents doing? They have their heads down. So I thought they were praying or meditating for their kids on the bench. They are not. They are on their mobile device. And so the question for churches is, why aren't you on their device? Why doesn't church see themselves as part of the network in which they are connected with people wherever they go, 24/7, 365, so that when mom and dad are waiting, which they do a lot of for their kids, they're waiting with you. 5 years ago, that was hard. Today, with all the digital content that's available, that's personal, portable, and participatory, why aren't churches on people's phones? By the way, about 200 million people have the YouVersion Bible on their phone. Age, generational, and family perspectives. I clumped them all together. So here's the lifespan one. We're a 10-decade society. Here's what I hear a lot when I do workshops with churches. We don't have any 20 and 30-somethings. Oh, it's terrible. Whining, moaning, groaning, gnashing of teeth, all the rest. I asked people to flip that. I said, who does come to Sunday worship? Well, all those old people. You mean the 50s, 60s, 70s? Yeah, those people. Yeah, they come every Sunday. Well, we had no 20s and 30s. I said, but what are you doing to serve those people? To feed those people? To equip those people? Oh, they're already coming. No, you're missing my point. You have grandparents there every Sunday. How many churches do you all know that are equipping and supporting grandparents to share faith and be faith formers of their grandchildren, even if their own kids are now atheists? Not literally, unaffiliated. You have them every Sunday. They even put an envelope in when they miss a worship. How much more loyal can they be? But we complain about who we don't have, but not who we do have. We don't recognize 10 decades of faith formation, 10 decades of ministry. How do we equip the people we have to be faith formers of people we don't have participating regularly? Because everyone's connected. There's at least 11 different family diversities. Those are just the biological related ones. We can put another list of the non-kindred ones. So we're setting up, thinking about church life, we're thinking about curriculum, we're thinking about programming. What's the image you carry in your head about family? And who are they? And what's going on in their lives? It's changed dramatically. Absolutely changed dramatically. And we work with 5 generations. From the builders, born before 46, you know who you are. Boomers, Xers, millennials, and these I-generation kids, they're already juniors in high school. Sophomores and juniors in high school. We haven't at all caught up to them. Think about 3rd graders today and what's available at their fingertips. If they ever got organized, they could take over the world. Every generation has different relationship and expressions in this list. How do we think generationally? How do we think family diversity? How do we think lifelong? Those are huge adaptive shifts for churches. Huge. Absolutely huge. Some of the changes, I don't need to name all of them, but if you move from builders to millennials over these 4 generations, you'll see these kinds of shifts. Loyal to institutions, suspicious and critical. Not just of church as an institution, but just institutions in general. I don't know why they'd ever be suspicious of institutions, but we've already seen it. From word to image. I mean, how many of you in this room would have predicted the rise of Instagram? By the way, if you had, you wouldn't be sitting here, you'd be counting your cash at home. Who predicted the rise of a photo image culture? When I was growing up, you did photos, you had to actually bring the Kodak film, so you couldn't screw up because then you'd pay for the black ones just like you paid for the ones that printed.
Yes.
Now, photos are the way people talk. They talk in visual images. The biggest search engine on the planet is Google. What's the second biggest search engine? YouTube, which is also owned by Google. YouTube's the second biggest search engine. In a minute, while we're here in a minute, over 100 hours of video will get uploaded to YouTube. It will take you, well into the year 5000 just to watch the videos that are on YouTube now. So the culture's changed dramatically towards what? Not only analog to digital. If you want to feel old, just show a 3rd grader a typewriter, a black rotary dial phone. Word culture to image culture, analog to digital, and most importantly, we developed churches that were one-size-fits-all churches. Especially now, coming out of the Roman Catholic world, we just revised, updated the Mass, really to go back to the to the Council of Trent, basically. But so it's all standardized. It's one size fits all. In a world where one size fits one. We still do educational programs that are one size fits all. Confirmation programs that are one size fits all is if every teenager in a confirmation program was at the same point in their walk with God, the same point in their journey of discipleship, the same point in understanding and living their faith. We live in a one-size-fits-one world. And oh, by the way, it only gets worse as you get to adulthood. 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, diversity only grows. So religious, spiritual, what's going on in the religious, spiritual world? Fascinating stuff. Yeah.
John, question for you.
Sure.
I'm thinking about that last slide. One size fits one. And I'm trying to think about larger congregations and how they have been able to grow or perhaps adapt internally to address different segments, age groups, combination of the above, and how they have been able to do that effectively, but smaller congregations have not. Any thoughts or observations about that?
Most bigger churches, especially the bigger non-denominationals, they staff up to the level of complexity. We're going the opposite direction. Main lines, Roman Catholic, are going up, we're staffing down. So as diversity and complexity rises, we're staffing down. I was with a church, I was telling Linda on the way out, I was with a church, big Church of God or Church of Christ, I forget which, big, 3,000 members, okay, worshiping on Sunday, 3 services, 3,000. 2,500 people in Sunday school, from children through adults. Huge, 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 huge. The multiplicity of programs and topics, but they have 40-something people on staff. Their weekly collection is $100,000. Do the math. It doesn't take much to get to $5.2 million, and that's without any bonus things. All right. So, the amazing thing is, we are not staffed up to the level of complexity, or we haven't thought through how to staff up to that. And that's where the digital enabler comes in handy. Because you can't create, they create a lot, I was talking with them, and they're this big church. It's fascinating. They're just talented people. But they create and write their own Bible studies. Well, with all that diversity, they might have a dozen different adult Bible study topics going on Wednesday night. But they write their own stuff. And I'm thinking, I know maybe 3 churches that could do that have staff to be able to invest in R&D. And so, but we now live in a digital world. Somebody else is doing our R&D for us. And it's in the digital platforms.
And we're curating.
We're curating high quality resources. So just think this year, how many Lenten devotionals did you get across your desk, meaning your email? I got about a dozen, 15 of them came through. Luther Seminary does one every year, high quality, nicely done, one for Advent, one for Lent. I can multiply that times 12 easily. Loyola Press, which is based here in Chicago, the Jesuits, they do all this free Lenten, church year seasonal content, family content, all the digital, all free. So I'm accessing this publishing company. It's all edited, it's all formatted. They all do it, it's free. So that's our, in a sense, that's our graced moment, is that in fact, the digital is not going to do digital faith formation per se. We're going to do faith formation with digital content and resources that are now widely accessible, no matter how big or small your church is. And when the churches build websites for faith formation, for learning, not just for information, but for formation, every church can look huge online. But you can access all these resources. I'll share a couple examples this afternoon of some of the churches I work with in the Nebraska Synod. Small churches, tiny, tiny. But one church is about 100, 125 members. But one of their parishioners writes a daily devotion that's on Facebook, Joe's Devotion. 300 people regularly read that devotion. So they are 3 times bigger on Facebook than they are on campus. You wouldn't know how big the church was, because on Facebook their presence is huge.
One of the things you just mentioned was the availability of high quality.
Yeah.
And part of that piece of personal and participatory also trying to be able to critically analyze what is information out there and what is high quality. And when it becomes personal, sometimes it's, well, I like this, I like this, I like this, and you know.
This is the analogy I make. And all of us in some way are now digital curators, either of our own content or other people's content. And so digital curators, one of our important things is kind of having a sense of this is good stuff, because we already know how to do that in the print world. We're just translating into the digital world. This is good content, this meets needs, but it's setting up a buffet table with all high quality food. I don't know what you're going to want to eat tonight, but it's there somewhere. But it's all been personally selected to be there. So I no longer have to kind of figure out, well, what's your need, what's your need, what's your need, what's your need. I just know there's a diversity of needs. I now know I have an abundance of high quality faith-forming content. My question is, can I match that with a diversity of needs and spread out that table, which I'll call my website, with all of that great content and say, see what matches with where you are today with what you need. And maybe it's a devotion, or maybe it's how to parent my kids, or maybe we can be that. So in so many ways, the digital era allows a church to expand its footprint in ways we never could imagine before. We can be on the soccer field with moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas waiting for their kids. So the old formula was, we need you to be with us where we are, because we are church. And the question today is, now we can be with you wherever you are. And our hope and prayer is that you will be with us sometimes. And increasingly, the more we serve you, the more we hope you'll be with all of us. See how the metric is changing? So when I'm working with churches, I'm saying, the metric isn't how many came on Sunday. The metric is how many did you reach, connect with, and engage. And some of those are there on Sunday. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. It's a different set of questions. But it's made possible. The accelerator is the personal, portable, participatory. The accelerator is the digital online content and platforms and all the social media available to us for free.
So we go back to your question about how do we control the internet. It's by how much food we put on the table.
Yeah.
Okay, providing our understanding, our perspective, our teaching, our practices, and then how do we help people connect to that in as many different forms as possible?
Well said. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because people, there's so much information. I mean, there's almost 350 million blogs. So it feels like someday you're inundated by blog posts. There's 350 million blogs. There's 2 times that in terms of the number of websites out there. WordPress alone hosts over 55 million websites. That's just WordPress. And it grows. So people can't manage all that information. We need intermediaries who curate and then provide in engaging formats things that match with people's needs. So in other words, we're curators and we're network builders. By the way, it's very freeing because we no longer have to figure out the solution, because that's not possible, by the way. We can now figure out a variety of solutions tailored to people. More about that in a minute. Okay. So that's a typical congregation. By the way, it's a typical family, 3-generational family too. So, you know the people that are the actives? In mainline Roman Catholic world, these skew older, 50 plus, 60 plus. That's not a bad thing, because those people are grandparents. Those people have money. One of the researchers on financial giving, the rest, says, we're getting ready for a $6 trillion longevity bonus in America. These people are living longer. That's the assets in people's houses, 401ks, annuities, and the rest. $6 trillion. church, we just need a little, tiny, little slightly, like, I'll take the 0.00001%, you know, and still walk away with a couple of million. So these are the actives. Everybody wants to grow that. Everybody wants to grow disciples, promote lifelong faith formation. But this is a snapshot. It's smaller group as you get younger. The occasionals, that's a huge group. You see them once a month, twice a month if it's like Christmas or Lent. Some of them are the come to Ash Wednesday, come to Easter, bypass Lent people. In the Roman Catholic world, it was the Christmas, Easter, Ash Wednesday, Palm Sunday Catholics. But even the Palm Sunday has kind of declined because you notice in Palm Sunday, like in our tradition, you read the whole Passion narrative. And that got moved there because people stopped going to Good Friday. That's my contention. I know it's a theological reason, but it's a lot of bunk. Don't call it Palm Sunday, change the name to Passion Sunday. Don't give out palms, give out nails. Because and people got onto it. The Mass goes on, and you're standing, and you're standing, and you're reading. And then he dies at the end. Oh, who needs this? So if you're an occasional, I'll be back on